So, Patricia, I am so pleased to be talking with you today. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you so much for your invitation. Yeah, I am
It is
very,
such
very
a
glad
pleasure.
to be here.
Well, I'm especially glad that you're doing the heavy lifting of speaking in your second language instead of me
Yes, well,
attempting this in Spanish. So I
I
really appreciate that.
I don't think so that this is my second language, but I will try it.
Okay, sounds great. So, let's start where I always like to open the conversation, which
Yes,
is to
of
ask
course.
you, what do you imagine is going on in the global human psyche right now?
Yes. Well, I think there are millions of persons, adults and young people, who knows very well that in the following decades, we will face the greatest consequence of a civilizational crisis. A crisis will be the result of a multiple ecological, climate, and energy risks. These people, like me, are transforming our fears, anxieties, helplessness, and despair into actions and movements that lead to the defense of human rights, as well nature and women rights. But of course, there are other groups of persons who are responding with the indifference that, according to psychologists and psychiatrists, the indifference is synonymous of escape.
Hmm.
This behavior occurs much more among young people who cannot transform their anger and frustration into constructive actions. So their answer is self destruction and more violence, with the consequent drug consumption and often even suicide.
Hmm.
For this reason, it's so important giving them a space for opinion and involve young people in decision making and actions.
Yeah, that's a very comprehensive and poignant answer. And thinking about the ways in which we can react to this sense of helplessness, whether we have the resources to be able to actively move towards finding alternatives, towards proactive problem solving, perhaps, or communicating with others, versus that helplessness, that closing down, and all the problems that that can cause, especially in younger people. And so,
Mhm,
thinking about that, because that's it's kind of these diverging paths towards
mhm,
dealing with the issues or finding it overwhelming. And so thinking about what it means to flourish, to have a
mhm,
path towards a flourishing future for all of us, especially when we're facing, as you say, like this ecological disruption, and we've got technology which is advancing at an extraordinary pace and
mhm,
systemic changes happening beneath our feet. What does flourishing mean to you?
mhm. Well, for me, to flourish is to beautify every
Mm.
place, every moment, every action we take. To flourish is to build trust in each other, because it's crucial to believe that we can stop the collapse that is projected. The youth and children generation needs to believe in their future with optimism, with hope, and flourishing is nurturing relationships of mutual and solidarity support in any crisis, no matter how tragic it may be. To flourish is to live with a lot of hope and to believe that we are capable of transforming ourselves and transforming a desert into oasis, and the life always triumph over death. I believe on that.
That's very powerful. Life triumphing over death, and also that the kind of thinking about the deserts and an oasis, the sense of there being a possibility to regain life
Mm-hmm.
individually, but also connected with the land and the places of which we are a part, which is something we'll talk about a bit later, our place making and community.
Yes.
But thinking about how painful and chaotic this moment is for so many people, and increasingly with the wars that we're seeing as well, I'm curious from your perspective where you are, and you're in Mexico City right now, is that right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I live in Morelia, Michoacan,
Morelia.
4 hours from Mexico City.
Okay, so not Mexico City, 4 hours away, but yeah. So to
Yes.
locate you geographically,
Yes.
what's from your perspective right now? What's laying heavy on your heart, thinking about this moment?
Yes. Well, when I look at the eyes of the children and I hear the voices of young people who insistently ask us who are responsible for this environmental disaster and the chaotic moment we are experiencing in many places of the world, what I feel in my heart as well as in my body is a strong impulse to scream and give them names with surnames who are mainly responsible for this cause, because there are names.
Yeah.
There are specifically people that are making this disaster. I compare it this feeling like I have in my body and my heart, like an electric shock. And I compare this as like a sensation, because when I work with young people, they force me to fight more, to continue, and of course to fight for preserve life. So this is my strength. Mhm.
It's that sense that it's funny, isn't it? Because I think in a lot of the conversations that I hear in various places on the web, and in various groups, one of the strategies to give us hope for the future, to avoid collapse, is to include everyone in the conversation and not to lay blame. And
Mhm.
at the same time, which I understand and I appreciate that, and at the same time, you're right, there are people with extraordinary power and
Mhm.
wealth and
Mhm.
capacity to make change if they so wished,
Mhm.
who are not stopping the destruction from happening, who are just carrying on. And I think that has to be named within the conversation.
Exactly.
It can't just be free
Exactly.
pass. So it's a delicate operation, balancing
Yes.
the need
Yes.
to have a conversation where people are brought
Mhm.
in, and also naming where the greatest harm is being done
Mhm.
and by which organizations or by whom.
Mhm.
Um, I'm curious what gives you cause for optimism and hope in your work, because you said you work with a lot of young
Yes.
people and that gives you
Yes. Yes.
strength and motivation. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. They inspire me a lot, but also other events, of course. So you asked me what give me this optimism or hopes that in fact I am talking to. Well, to know that there are millions of people, groups, organization, experience all over the world that are working on many issues to mitigate and stop the ecological, energy, and climate crisis. In fact, I have been, well, for all since 40 years ago, I have been traveling in not just in Mexico country, also in many countries, and I look this, so I confirm this, what I am saying out. Also, to get involved with some of this experience. It's not just to know, it's also get involved in some of this experience, at least one, for example, because a group protects you, nourishes your soul, and gives you hope that if it's possible to transform the world through the way we want. I believe that. And I can speak from my experience for 40 years now, And I can confirm that in the last 10 years, there has been an exponential growth of groups working on issues of in restoration and conservation of biodiversity, but also the defense of cultural richness. And of course, in this, on strengthening local economies of millions of families. I know that we have made progress on this type of experience. As well, we have gone backwards in other issues. When I have a negative perspective, because of course I accept that sometimes,
Yeah.
I become depressed or something
Yeah, and
with
it's
more
too much.
anxieties, of course. I intensify. I will talk about later, but I intensify my resilience capacities work. I will talk about this later.
Yeah, resilience is such a strong theme.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So, thinking about being part of a group and how we can really support one another and nourish one another on all of these different levels, one of the topics that you're known for, that you've worked in, is peace building through indigenous agroforestry practices, which sounds absolutely fascinating and quite captivating. And I'm really curious to hear more about this path. What led you to explore the topic, and how can we start to build peace through the practice of agroforestry?
Yes, of course. Yes, well, what led me to explore the indigenous agroforest? I would like to start to say that when I started studying biology, my bachelor, my interested focus on learning about indigenous regions and their strategies to management their territories, natural resources, and of course agroecosystems. Since then, well, many years, decades, 40 years, yes, I was really concerned about two issues: the accelerated destruction of nature and extreme poverty in indigenous regions. Yes. For this reason, I started my research in an indigenous region in Mexico, in Veracruz, in east of Mexico. Yes. And then in Puebla, with two ethnic groups, Totonacas, and Nahuatls. I found into those territories extraordinary agroforestry management.
Oh.
And I found that into these agroecosystems, there is a very close relationship between conservation of biological and genetic diversity and the ancestral knowledge that indigenous groups applied to their ecosystem. I extended my research, of course, during many years in other regions in Mexico, but also in other countries in Latin America, mainly in Latin America. And after 30 years of my this specific research and working in agroforests, I call indigenous agroforests,
Yeah.
I confirm that if we want to preserve nature, we need to preserve cultures. These
Yeah.
go together always.
Cultures and their
Yes,
places.
yes. And you ask about how we can build peace through the practice of agroforestry. Well, I would like to quote a phrase. I love Noam Chomsky. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love him. Yes, he's a genius. And he said, to get out of this civilization crisis that modern society has brought us, will we have to listen and learn from indigenous regions. And yes, In many indigenous regions, we can find strategies to face not only the scarcity of resources that we will be facing very soon,
Yeah.
but also strategies that are so necessary for our survival, which are these strategies: solidarity, cooperation, humility, and of course, simplicity. In a world that tries to impose individualism, competition, arrogance, and even paralysis in our capacities to take decisions and actions. This doesn't mean that indigenous regions are a paradise. In those regions, we know that there are many socio-environmental and cultural problems, such as some traditions that have to be confronted and resolved by them, or the migration, for example, from rural to urban areas, mainly from young people. But it is a fact that the hundreds of cultures that exist all over the world can teach us more than the arrogant modern society can do it. And to build peace, we require, of course, organization and democracy, but above all, tolerance, solidarity, and empathy. It is also important to mention that in these regions there are other agroecosystems, not just agroforests, indigenous agroforests. Also, there are other agroecosystems such as milpas. Milpas is corn with other species comestibles, polycultures, small intensive livestock farming, among others. That, like indigenous agroforests, can be an important source of economic resources for millions of poor families, and at the same time conserve the biological and genetic diversity and richness that we will necessary for the survival of our species.
Wow, I mean, it's such a rich area, and it's
Yes,
really quite
yes.
touching hearing you talk about those specific qualities that we need to engender and support within our communities and with one another: cooperation, solidarity, humility. And it's as you're reading it out or like naming these things, it's so clear to me that the rampant individualism,
Mhm,
atomization,
mhm,
sense of separateness between people
mhm,
and between ourselves and nature, it's at the very opposite end of the spectrum
mhm,
to the kind of approach you're talking about, the approach that we need to take for feeling like we are in relationship with the wider web of life. You know, there's this idea
mhm,
that we're separate from nature.
mhm,
It's um, it's such a false idea, and we operate in the West as if it's
mhm,
true, and it's
mhm,
not.
mhm,
Um, So let's talk a little bit about
mhm,
the ecological side of things, which is hugely important. And as an ecologist with your years of research and experience, you focused
mhm,
on such a variety of projects, from the
mhm,
conservation, as you've just talked about, of indigenous agroforestry and community resilience, to environmental education, and also artistic human development, which I'm particularly
mhm,
interested in. Um, what influenced you down this path? Because you're weaving together threads that some
mhm,
folks might not always put together. So, what led you down this
mhm,
particular path?
mhm. Well, there were various events in my professional and daily life, not just
Huh.
professional. Yes. As an ecologist and a researcher in indigenous regions, I understood, for example, that more than theories, of course, we need it, but more than theories that I had learned. Well, these theories, of course, I learned from university. No,
Yeah.
we needed learning with a through coexistence with other cultures in other regions. as well as involvement, in this case, my involvement with within social and environmental movements. Furthermore, as a woman, I experience the injustice that many women suffer from being part of a misogynist patriarchal society. At this point, it was very useful to have contact, in my case, with ecofeminists from other countries, as well as working with many women who belongs to rural and urban areas who had suffered from domestic and sexual violence.
Yeah.
The other event was marked by my students when I realized that environmental education had a very reductionist approach through the exclusive use of our rational intelligence.
Yeah.
As an educator, I ask myself why theory not necessarily lead to awareness and then to take actions. And this take me to other fields, like, for example, philosophy, social psychology, and also a neurologist. Well, of course, I'm not a neurologist, but I love to read about
Yeah.
these fields in order to understand more about the complexity of or our brain and therefore our irrational behaviors of,
Yeah.
well, there are many people with these irrational behaviors. So I think that if we want to uh, develop us as a human beings, we require the use of all our intelligence, not just rational intelligence, but also emotional, physical, intuitive, musical, and even nature intelligence. And what means this?
Yeah.
Our wisdom, all people has this, but we forget when we live in urban areas all time, or we
Yeah.
don't be in touch with the nature. But we have a wisdom to survive in a nature as an species, and this well, this wisdom we acquire through an evolutionary process over billions of years.
Yeah.
So we need to know now. And the art for me was a very, very important tool.
I would love to hear more about the art.
Yes,
um,
yes,
is that
yes.
coming?
Yes, it's coming.
So, because you've founded, you've woven this into the work that you do, and you're the founder at the Art, Ecology and Culture Centre, the ECOFE. So I have a suspicion we'll learn a bit more about the arts here, but can you tell us about what the centre is and
Yes,
why you created it? You're clearly
yes,
passionate about about
yes,
the possibility for transformation through art and music.
yes, yes, yes. We can do it. Well, 12 years ago, we founded, when I said we founded, is with my family, especially my husband. And well, I have two sons. They are very old. Not me, they.
Yes, yes, yes. We've stayed the same age. They grew up.
Exactly, exactly. And we founded ECOFE, or the Center of Arts and Ecology and Culture, which synthesize the three fields that we have been, also with my husband and I, we has been working for many, many years is ecology, of course, culture with
Yeah.
cultures, and then, especially in my case, with art. In this center, which is located within an area with a forest, we offer, of course, now workshops in meditation, resilience, and in my case, eco dance. I will talk, of course, about eco
Oh,
dance.
that
Eco
sounds
dance is
amazing.
a yes, is a well. I create the eco dance.
Huh.
It's a link between ecology with dance and music.
Mm,
No?
mm.
And which is the line that I personally I have been developing for 20 years. But
Oh,
I will also like to mention, that in this year we were able to open another art and cultural center
amazing.
with a public with a private financial support, and the name of this center is NIDO. Yes,
Neither.
the
As in a
design of
nest.
this, yes, it's a nest, and the design and the creation was mainly made by my second son,
Wow.
Emilio. A nido whose name refers to these shelters that birds build to place their babies. So nido is the shelter that will house the community from Morelia, in this case, mainly Morelia, Michoacán, the city where we live, but also other, of course, other regions of Mexico, but open to other countries. So
Wow.
anytime, please, if you want to come here, you will know, and I would like to invite you, of course, and to
I would
give
love
you
that.
that you give some workshops or a speech or
Yes.
something you wanted there.
What an
So
offer.
neither, yes, so neither focuses its activities in art, culture, and education, like ECOFE, of course, because we believe that they are three key process in the integral development of every human being. These three keys: education, art, and culture.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, that in at least, well, so I was raised in the UK, the art, any of the arts, all of the arts are the first
Mm-hmm.
thing that
Mm-hmm.
get cut from public education, that people, that we
Yes.
so much need that in part of our cultures, especially in cultures where there is a lot less ceremony, music
Mm-hmm.
gathering, art gathering, ritual
Mm-hmm.
gathering. It's we have so few places where that happens anymore. We've got, if I think of any ceremonies that I was raised in, it would be things like birthdays, Christmas, very
Mm-hmm.
few. And yet we know from the research, as you've pointed towards, that it's these
Mm-hmm.
moments of gathering, being creative together, exploring the interbeing, like the relationship that we have with one
Mm-hmm.
another in our wider place, that's so crucial to create that sense of culture and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so thinking about artistic human development, what
Mm-hmm.
is the role or roles of creativity and the imagination in
Mm-hmm.
helping us to create a more flourishing future?
Mm-hmm. Well, uh, as you say, art, like culture, of course, provides social cohesion as well as approaching life, and therefore encouragement, hope, and joy. Art is an extraordinary tool to work on our healthy abilities by developing our multiple intelligence. As I
Mm.
said before, we need to use not just rational intelligence, also body intelligence, music intelligence, nature intelligence, all these intelligence that we have that allow us to develop capacities. And what capacities I am talking to? Empathy, mainly. Well, there are many, but I talk about empathy, generosity, joy, trust, and of course, love.
Mm.
Creativity and imagination, of course, are capacities that all human beings have. And these two capacities will express even in the worst scenarios we face.
Mhm.
There are a lot of studies from the psychologists and psychiatrics that has been studying this specifically field that I have been mentioned. So mainly when we have it's very important, of course, to find support networks in our environment. Yes, this is crucial. It is a fact that in the face of the growing threats we face, we require all our imagination and creativity, of course, to build the multiple strategies that we will need them in order to stop, yes, and to build other routes that we avoid the future collapse that is projected by scientifics,
scientists,
scientists, exactly. No.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about creativity and imagination. One of the things that I think is a theme that comes up quite a lot is when we're in a state of anxiety or stress or fear, and it could be something as, for me, for instance, something as simple as a bit of conflict with someone that I hadn't anticipated. My life is not at risk. I'm in a relatively safe country, and yet it's so easy to tip into a state of stress where suddenly everything constricts, and I can feel my body constrict, my breathing constrict, and then my imagination, my creativity also constrict. So I'm kind of curious, are there approaches, especially when we're thinking about future collapse and really serious issues, are there approaches we can use to feel the stress and the anxieties and to harness our creativity and our imagination, so we're not just kind of trapped in the fear, but we find our way to creativity and to imagination?
Well, when you use the art, yes, it's very different. So it's completely different. And that if you give a speech, of course, or I can spend, for example, at the university with my students for many years. I can explain them very well, very, very well, the theories or the social and ecological problems. Of course, I used to take them to the fields and to explain on the field the problem, to involve. But before I use this tool of art, it was very, very difficult that they cross this line from the awareness to the action. Yes. And when you prove this in your own body, not just the brain. Well, of course, the brain is connected with body. Now we are a unity. No.
Yes.
Yes. So
It's true.
for example, well, I will talk later about my methodology, affective resilience eco-pedagogy, that I has been developed for many years. When you work with dance, for example, that I use, yes, you feel in your body, and of course, this take you to, of course, to make specific thoughts and analysis, complete different if you just analyze from your intelligence, rational intelligence.
Yeah, it's a different knowledge when you know it, where it's connected, the body, mind, the sensations, the emotions. It's a fuller knowing.
Do it. Yes, do it. Always, I say to my people when I give when someone invite me to give a speech or conference, at the end, yes, because it's very difficult to introduce these dances. So at the end, always I said, please
get up,
stand up. Yes, we are going to just one dance.
Wow.
And it's amazing. Yes, what they can do it, the
Wow.
arts, no?
And getting people to do it. It's so easy to talk about it, but then when you're meeting the moment of having to do it, that's where real transformation can happen.
Exactly,
So you
exactly.
mentioned briefly earlier, you talked about resilience through dance,
Mm-hmm,
music, and movement, and you just dropped in the very interesting
mm-hmm.
term that you framed, which is effective, resilient
Resilient,
eco-pedagogy.
mm-hmm.
Pedagogy.
Pedagogic, exactly.
And it's
For
my
me, it was
first
very.
language. Oh, well, I'm glad I'm stumbling. Effective, resilient, eco-pedagogy.
I tried
Pedagogy.
many times in
Eco-pedagogy.
Spanish, also in Spanish, also.
¿Cómo suena en español?
Well,
Pedagogía.
it's easier. Ecopedagogía. It's easier. It's easier. But yes,
Ecopedagogía. Yeah, it's a bit more rhythmic.
ecopedagogía. Ecopedagogía. But in English, is
Ecopedagogía.
ecopedagogy. Ecopedagogy.
Eco-pedagogy.
Pedagogy. Yes,
Pedagogy. Oh
exactly.
my God.
Exactly.
Wow. And I'm a freaking author. I should know these things. Anyway, luckily it's not my term, it's yours. So
Okay.
can you tell us
Well,
about what it is? Yeah,
yes.
and how it can help us.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Well, I create, yes, the eco dance, and eco dance is the dance I call the dance to defend or to protect life.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
So, of course, there are a methodology with this that has been working for many years, no? But and I develop a specific is eco-pedagogy, yes, resilience, yes, and is affective. So I will explain this. Is a pedagogical proposal which establish theoretical and methodological bridge between ecology with art for working on resilience. Resilience is our healthy capacities to motivate collective participation in eco-social transformation.
Wow.
Yes. Of course, we focus on the individual, but this is always goes to community resilience level. Yes, that we have such, everybody has solidarity, empathy, self-esteem, joy, autonomy, creativity, imagination, and this capacity make us feel that we can transform ourselves and change the world where we live. But for me, and I prove this with many, many groups, yes, the main pillar of these capacities are affect or love, yes, is that in this resilience process, yes, and I have been applying the in the eco dance methodology, yes, when I work with my students, young or women. In fact, for example, many women that has been suffering violence or domestic or sexual abuse. When I apply this methodology, is amazing. Yes, the answers that these women have in order to go outside of these anxieties or
Yeah.
fears or many things, no, that they feel. Yes. So and the results, well, I would like to say that this methodology, it's I explained, I am writing a book now. I hope that in following months will be in, I can be published. Yes, of
Amazing.
course,
So
I will tell
exciting.
you. Of course, I will tell
Please.
you. Yes. So this book it will be refer about this methodology because well, many students that I have been applying this methodology always tell me. Of course, I have been publishing some papers, but
Yes.
they ask me, please give me the methodology, music, dance, and the steps, no, that we
Yes.
need to work our resilience as individual level and also community level, no,
Mm.
because for me, my main, well, I work many years in indigenous regions. So
Yes.
of course I learned a lot about their resilience process. So this resilient process, I apply it in other regions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing. I really want
Uh-huh.
to try it.
And also, I don't know if you ask how this approach can help us.
Yes, I would love to hear how it can help us.
Yes. Well, um, I it, well many things, but I will say that mainly restores and recover our healthy capacities that are necessary to feel and perceive that we can build a better world,
Mm.
a flourishing world where beauty dominates, not
Mm.
ugly, not anxieties, not fears. Of course, we are going to feel everything of
Yeah.
this. It's part of our resilience. But when we work with our resilience, always the healthy capacities
Mhm.
going up.
Yeah, they
Yes, and
enhance.
this is as a tool of this motivation, empowerment, and hope. For me, more than ecology is the art. Mhm.
Beautiful. It's funny, when I was living in London for many, many years, I would go to a class called Five Rhythms, which was established and developed by an American woman called Gabrielle Roth. And her kind of, it was almost like a mantra in a way, but it's like the idea of sweating your prayers. And this, I would go to this dance class usually once or twice a week, and it was 2 hours or 3 hours on a Saturday. And it was one of these things where it was learning how to get out of your own way. So, what, most of us, many of us, when we dance, we worry about the judgment of others, or if we look silly, or whatever it might be. And one of the things I learned through this practice was that you can just let go of that and dance as you would dance when you were a child. So if you're listening to music and you feel really sad, you're going to move in a way that is
Mhm.
sad, that feels coherent with that. And there's something
Mhm.
extraordinary about the empowerment and liberation and relief
Mhm.
that I would
Mhm.
feel when,
Mhm.
if I didn't have the words to express my anger or my
Mhm.
joy or my
Mhm.
restlessness, any of the feelings,
Mhm.
that my body could do it for me, and the music could be my
That's it.
voice, and my body
Exactly.
could carry me into these different places, in community with others without even speaking. And
Exactly.
there's such power to these forms of dance
Exactly.
and community being, that
Exactly.
if you don't try it, you don't know.
Exactly.
um
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yes, the body express better than the brain. Well, the rational intelligence better because the body, when you want to say that you are sad or you are happy or you are any feel
Any of the
that you
feelings.
yes, the body is precisely
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And well, now there are many studies from it comes from neurologist field, also from psychology, sociology, psychology, and also from other fields that proves that the dance is, well, of course, the dance with music
Mm.
is the best way, yes, in order to, well, to work the resilience
Yeah.
or the healthy capacities that I mentioned before.
Yeah. And so many people are so uncomfortable about dancing. There's so much shame that's wrapped up in that. So thinking about resilience, and you mentioned earlier at the very beginning of our conversation how some of the youth, some of the young people you work with tip into kind of this helplessness. What's your perspective on how we can meet and engage with the challenges we face without collapsing into a sense of hopelessness and overwhelm?
Well, as I told you before, by introducing arts in different. Okay, of course, the people probably doesn't want to dance, or probably, well, it's almost impossible that the people doesn't like music. But okay, I will assume that somebody doesn't like music, but art, when I talk about art, is poetry, literature, cinema, sculpture, and theater. So we have different fields from the arts. So I think I would like to invite you. I would like to invite all people that are listening this, well, extraordinary interview that you are making with your really very, very important questions that because you are well, you are giving to me elements, no, to analyze also. Yes, and to think a lot, no.
Thank you.
And I believe that because I prove with many people that the art is what come closest to life. Yes. Cinema opens new realities. For example, literature recreates these realities. Painting, we can alter the reality. With music, we learn to listen. It's very important to listen. And with dance, we live realities. So we feel that we can transform them.
You speak very poetically.
Thank you. I like so
I'm
much.
just thinking, I'd like to write these down and sort of have them on my wall. Because it's,
I will.
it's, please send it to me, because it's so easy to get
Yes,
lost in the,
of course,
daily
I will
life and
send
to
you.
forget. Thank
Yes.
you.
I will send you to you. Yes, of course. Yes, and you can use it. Yes.
I would love that. Thank you. And so thinking about these different forms of reality and these different forms of interrelating, how do you experience your relationship with the living earth at this moment in time, with all of the work that you've done in Indigenous agroforestry, with communities, with the arts? You're talking about arts and life being intertwined. Yeah.
Yes, at this moment, through the care and relationship with my domestic first animals, dogs and cats.
I
of
love
course.
dogs.
Yes.
And
Oh,
cats.
I love it. I love them. Yes. Through my participation in local and regional movement in defense of life, through the planting, sometimes I invest time. Well, this year was very difficult, but the last year and the other years was possible to plant and harvesting some food in ECOFE, through eco dance and cultural activities in NIDO, and to be in touch, of course, with people who defend, protect, and care life and the rights that correspond to human, indigenous women and nature. Yes.
That's very interesting, the connection there. I was listening to someone talk, someone who I'm going to have on the show in the coming weeks, formerly known as Eve Ensler, who I came to know through her extraordinary work called The Vagina Monologues, which came out, I think, maybe 20 years ago. And and one thing she was talking about was how this connection between her body and the body of the earth, how it took her experiencing a very grave illness to realize that she was so disconnected from her relationship with the earth. And so hearing you talk about, and she talks about it within the context of more patriarchal, hierarchical, extractive systems, and that one of the paths to healing is through the ways in which we understand our relationship to women, how we protect the vulnerable, the children, the the nature that we depend on to flourish and to live and to survive. But so I'd like to kind of come towards the close, and with all of the work that you're doing, and especially I'm thinking now with so many young people that you work with that you mentioned earlier, who look to you for guidance and encouragement and optimism. When you're dealing with really difficult things and trauma and people who've really lived a lot of pain and suffering, how do you orient yourself towards life and beauty, which you so beautifully put
Yes,
earlier,
yes,
when it gets really difficult?
yes. Well, this is a very important question. Well, uh, I try to work daily on my resilience through different ways. No, not just dance and music. Also, swimming is very important to
Oh,
make exercise. Yes, it's very, very important to make some type of exercise. More when you are older. Yes, your body asks you and tell you, please, I am here. You have to
yes,
move
yeah.
more. Yes.
I get
So
asked that all the
yeah,
time, and sometimes I ignore it a bit. Sorry.
you are so young. So you are so young.
Mm. Well, I'll take that
Okay.
compliment. Thank you. Sorry, carry on.
Yes. Also, my resilience. I work with my like taking care of my animals, of course. Reading, going to the cinema. I love cinema.
Mm.
Conversation with friends. My garden, and the activities that we continue develop in ECOFE and NIDO. When we connect with others in solidarity, yes, and love, of course, this type of relation that is not super flat, no, just to go more uh, deep, no, abandoning, of course, that type of relation helped you to abandon, at least for a moment, our egocentrism, because all of us has we are egocentrists, yes.
Yeah.
So we have to work about this in order to develop empathy, yes. The neurology says that when we born, of course, there are an empathy in the brain. It's a region in our brain that as other capacities, we have these capacities of in empathy. But the culture, yes, or the family and the different things that we are going to live through our life is going to develop, yes, or to
Or to
avoid,
inhibit. Yeah.
exactly, or to
Yeah.
prohibit it, yes. But for example, if during your child, when you were a child or teenager, you have a very difficult child life, or with that in a teenager, you become adult person with many problems because of this life. But if you find at least one person, it's amazing, our capacity to work, if we work the resilience with, of course, with the help of some person. Sometimes we need, of course, therapy. Yes, of course, it's very important. But if we develop these capacities, we could, of course, the past, this history in our life will remains, but we are going to change our perspective. How was
Yeah,
our
our relationship to
history?
it. Yes.
Exactly. So, well, I think that for me, it's when my perspective is negative, or I feel really with a lot of fear. Really, I work more with resilience, and of course, my eco dance is very useful, no, as a tool. But you can do many things. Yes.
It's
Yes.
fascinating. I would love to
Uh-huh.
take you up on your offer to come and visit you and
Of course,
experience the
of
eco
course,
dance.
of
Oh,
course, of course. I will
it'd be such a
I will
joy.
love it. Yes. In fact, in Bristol, where
Yeah,
we
at the
met,
Planet Local Summit.
yes, and the Planet Local Summit, I tried to put one dance.
Oh, you did a
Yes, but
workshop,
I
a
try
mini
it.
one.
I asked
Yeah,
to the people who
yeah,
were coordinated this meeting,
yeah.
but it was not possible. There were a lot of activities, a lot.
Yes,
Beautiful, wonderful. Yes, I love it. But
yeah.
I, well, probably the next time.
Next time, definitely the next
Probably the
time.
next
We'll
time.
stay for a
Yes.
few days before and
Yes.
after and have some of these workshops to go to.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
before we go to the deep questions round,
Yes, of course.
if people want to find out more about your fascinating work, where are the best
Yeah.
places to find you?
Well, as you notice that I am not good with the technology tool.
You've done very well.
Yeah, no, it's well, I really, well, my first route is with my email. Yes,
Okay.
because by email, yes, is I try to give the answers immediately.
Yeah.
It's more personal,
Yeah.
no, and of course we can make meetings by Zoom if it's necessary. And my email is Patrick Moguel 56 @gmail.com. Yes,
Lovely.
yes. So this is. I have another an internet page, EcoDance, but it's it's, I use more the email. My two sons always say, "Why don't you use your page? You have a
Yeah.
page, so you can use it, videos, put your
Put your email
papers,
on
your
there.
events, anything." But okay, probably in the future, or I don't
Yeah.
know. But I don't. I am a disaster with the technology.
You're doing more important things. That's all I can say.
And anybody who wants to come here, Mexico, of course, you are welcome always. Yes, please.
Thank you. Well,
Yes.
Patricia, it's been such a pleasure being in
Mm,
conversation with you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, thank you very much.